Eleanor's phone buzzed as she was pulling Christmas decorations from the attic, the same ornaments she'd been hanging for 3 decades. The text from her daughter-in-law Jessica made her hands tremble so violently she nearly dropped her phone. "Hi Eleanor. We've decided Christmas should just be our immediate family this year. Please don't plan on coming. Thanks for understanding. 32 years of hosting Christmas dinner. 32 years of her late husband Harold carving the turkey while she orchestrated the perfect meal for everyone. 32 years of Michael bringing girlfriends, then Jessica, then their children to her table. Now Jessica was casually erasing her from her own family tradition with a cold, dismissive text message sent like an afterthought. Eleanor sank onto the dusty attic floor, surrounded by boxes of ornaments that suddenly felt meaningless. Each decoration held a memory. The angel Michael made in 2nd grade, the ornaments from their first Christmas as a family of 3. The casual "thanks for understanding" felt like a slap across the face. Understanding what? That she was no longer wanted by her own family? Eleanor immediately called her son Michael, her voice shaking with disbelief and hurt. "Did you know about this text from Jessica? Did you know she was planning to uninvite me from Christmas?" His response cut deeper than his wife's rejection, delivered in a tone so casual it felt like a knife to her heart. "Mom, honestly, it's just easier this way. Jessica's been really stressed about hosting, and you know how you two can be. It's complicated. Maybe it's better if we just keep things simple this year." How we two can be. Eleanor's voice cracked. 30 years of motherhood reduced to a problem to be managed. "Michael, I raised you. I worked 2 jobs after your father died. I gave you everything I had. I never missed a game, a recital, a moment that mattered to you. I know all that, Mom, but Jessica's my wife now. I have to put my marriage first. You'll understand when you calm down." The line went dead. Eleanor stared at the phone, realizing her own son had chosen sides, and it wasn't hers. The boy who once promised to protect her had just abandoned her completely. For the first time in 3 decades, Eleanor's dining room sat silent on Christmas morning. The good china remained locked away in the cabinet, each piece carefully wrapped and stored like memories she was no longer allowed to make. The family recipes lay unused in their wooden box. Harold's mother's stuffing, her own grandmother's cranberry sauce, the secret ingredient in her famous gravy that made Michael beg for seconds every year. She'd always been the matriarch who held everyone together, the gravitational center around which Christmas orbited. Her house was where cousins reunited, where new boyfriends were welcomed, where babies took their first Christmas photos. The walls themselves seemed to remember the laughter, the chaos of gift opening, the satisfied sighs after dinner. Now she was just an old woman, alone with her memories and a house that echoed with the ghosts of Christmas past. She poured herself coffee with shaking hands, the silence so complete she could hear the refrigerator humming. The traditions she'd lovingly created, nurtured, and perfected were happening somewhere else, without her. She wondered if anyone even missed her homemade rolls, or if Jessica's store-bought everything was somehow better. 2 days after Christmas, Eleanor ran into her neighbor Linda at the grocery store. Linda's awkward expression and the way her eyes darted away immediately put Eleanor on high alert. They'd been neighbors for 15 years, and Linda had never looked uncomfortable around her before. "Oh, honey," Linda said hesitantly, clearly debating whether to speak at all. "I probably shouldn't say this, but I saw Jessica at the mall last week. She was with some friends, and they were talking pretty loudly near the food court. I couldn't help but overhear when she said how relieved she was to finally have a drama-free Christmas without the overbearing mother-in-law bringing down the mood and criticizing everything." Eleanor's stomach dropped like a stone. The words hit her like physical blows. Jessica hadn't just excluded her. She'd actively celebrated her absence, painting Eleanor as a burden to be discarded. Worse, she'd done it publicly, in front of strangers, turning Eleanor into a punchline. Linda squeezed her arm sympathetically before hurrying away, leaving Eleanor standing frozen in the cereal aisle, surrounded by families doing their normal grocery shopping while her world crumbled around boxes of cornflakes and milk. The worst revelation came through 6-year-old Emma's innocent phone call on New Year's Eve. Eleanor's heart leaped when she saw her granddaughter's name on the caller ID. The first contact from anyone in the family since the text message that started it all. "Grandma Ellie?" Emma's sweet voice came through the phone. "I missed you at Christmas. Mommy said you couldn't come because you were too busy with work. Were you working on Christmas? That seems really sad. I wanted to show you my new dollhouse, and Jake wanted you to see his Lego castle." Eleanor's heart shattered into a million pieces. Jessica hadn't just excluded her. She'd crafted an elaborate lie to make Eleanor seem like she'd chosen to abandon her own grandchildren. The children thought their grandmother had prioritized work over spending Christmas with them. "No, sweetheart," Eleanor whispered, fighting back tears and trying to keep her voice steady for the little girl she adored. "Grandma wasn't too busy. Grandma wanted to be there with you and Jake more than anything in the whole world." After hanging up, Eleanor realized Jessica wasn't just pushing her out. She was systematically rewriting the narrative to make Eleanor the villain in her own grandchildren's eyes. It was psychological warfare disguised as family management. That night, Eleanor did something she'd never done in her 72 years on Earth. She took out a spiral notebook and began writing down every slight, every passive-aggressive comment, every moment Jessica had made her feel unwelcome in her own son's life. The pen moved across the page like she was purging poison from her system. The wedding where Jessica forgot to save Eleanor a seat at the family table, forcing her to sit with distant relatives she'd never met. The birthdays where Eleanor's carefully chosen gifts were dismissed as not quite right or not really my style. The constant criticism disguised as helpful suggestions. How Eleanor's cooking was too heavy, how her decorating was outdated, how her parenting advice was from a different generation. The baby showers where Jessica made cutting remarks about old-fashioned grandmothers who spoil children. The holidays where Jessica would rearrange Eleanor's gifts to put her own in more prominent positions. The subtle ways Jessica had been erasing Eleanor from family photos, memories, and traditions for years. As her pen moved across the page, documenting years of calculated cruelty, Eleanor's sadness transformed into something else entirely. A cold, calculated anger that burned like ice in her veins. Jessica wanted a war? She'd get one. Eleanor walked to her bedroom and opened the antique jewelry box that had belonged to Harold's grandmother, passed down through 4 generations of strong women who'd weathered wars, depressions, and family tragedies. Hand-carved walnut with intricate mother-of-pearl inlays, brass hinges that still moved smoothly after 150 years, worth nearly $20,000 according to the last appraisal. For 5 years, Jessica had dropped increasingly obvious hints about inheriting it. Standing too close when Eleanor opened it, commenting on how gorgeous it was, asking pointed questions about Eleanor's will and plans for family heirlooms. Just last month, Jessica had actually photographed it while Eleanor was in the bathroom, claiming she wanted to show her mom how beautiful antiques could be. "When I'm gone, this will naturally go to Michael's wife," Eleanor had always said diplomatically, watching Jessica's eyes light up with naked greed every single time. Jessica had even researched its value online, casually mentioning auction prices for similar pieces at family dinners. Eleanor ran her fingers over the smooth wood, feeling the weight of generations in her hands. Jessica wanted this box more than anything, more than Eleanor's approval, more than family harmony, more than her own children's relationship with their grandmother. And that desperate want gave Eleanor an idea that made her smile for the first time in days. Eleanor spent New Year's Day carefully crafting her revenge like a master chess player thinking 12 moves ahead. It needed to be public enough to expose Jessica's true character, humiliating enough to make her question everything, and devastating enough to wake Michael up from whatever spell his wife had cast over him. Most importantly, it needed to be absolutely, perfectly justified. She would give Jessica exactly what she'd been begging for all these years. The contents of the precious jewelry box. Just not what Jessica expected. The beauty of it was that Jessica had been so vocal about wanting the heirloom, had made such a show of coveting it in front of family and friends, that everyone would be watching when she finally received it. Eleanor's smile grew wider as she imagined Jessica's face in front of all her judgmental friends, opening what she thought was a fortune in family jewels. The anticipation would make the revelation even more delicious. Sometimes the perfect gift comes wrapped in truth, tied with a bow of karma. Jessica had wanted to destroy Eleanor's relationship with her family? Fine. But Eleanor was about to show everyone exactly what Jessica had torn apart, and what kind of person celebrates destroying a mother's bond with her child. Eleanor drove to Pemberton's, the finest gift-wrapping boutique in the city, the kind of place where celebrities and old-money families had their presents professionally wrapped. She selected the most expensive paper they offered, shimmering silver with genuine gold embossing that caught the light like scattered diamonds, and requested their premium presentation service. "I want this to look like something truly precious," she told the consultant, who nodded knowingly. They created an elaborate masterpiece with hand-tied silk ribbons in deep burgundy, wax seals that looked medieval, and a hand-calligraphed tag in elegant script. "For Jessica, with all my love and best wishes. From your devoted mother-in-law, Eleanor." The box was substantial and perfectly weighted, giving the impression that something valuable and heavy lay nestled inside. Eleanor had them add their exclusive luxury heritage gift seal, a detail that would make Jessica absolutely certain she was finally receiving the family treasure she'd coveted for years. She requested signature-required delivery for January 15th, Jessica's birthday, exactly 3 weeks after the Christmas rejection. The timing was perfect. Jessica would have just finished telling everyone about her peaceful holiday without Eleanor, making the gift's arrival even more impactful. The anticipation would be exquisite torture. Inside the elegant box wasn't jewelry, but something far more precious and infinitely more dangerous to Jessica's carefully constructed narrative. Every letter, drawing, and card Michael had ever given Eleanor as a child. 23 years of "I love you," mommy notes, crayon drawings of their family with hearts floating overhead, school essays about heroes that always featured his mother, and handmade cards declaring eternal devotion. The collection was staggering. Mother's Day cards made from construction paper and glitter. Father's Day cards addressed to Mom, who's also my dad, after Harold died. Birthday cards with stick figure drawings of him and Eleanor holding hands. Report cards where he'd written "Thanks for helping me study, Mom," in the margins. The centerpiece was Michael's letter from age 8, written in his careful, best handwriting, for a school assignment about promises. "Dear Mommy, when I grow up, I promise I'll never let anyone be mean to you because you're the best mom in the whole world and you deserve to be happy. I'll always protect you and make sure you know how much I love you. You're my favorite person ever." Eleanor's hands trembled as she placed each item carefully in the box, knowing these innocent words would soon become Jessica's worst nightmare. Each declaration of love a bullet aimed at her lies. Eleanor tracked the package obsessively through the shipping company's website, refreshing the page every few hours like she was monitoring a patient's vital signs. She knew Jessica's schedule by heart: yoga at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays, grocery shopping after lunch, always home by 2 p.m. to wait for the children's school bus. At exactly 2:47 p.m. on January 15th, Jessica's signature appeared on the tracking system: J. Mitchell, received in person, delivered to customer directly. The little electronic confirmation felt like watching a bomb being armed. Eleanor could picture Jessica's excitement, probably running her hands over the expensive wrapping, maybe even taking photos to send to her friends. Jessica was probably calling her mother right now, breathlessly announcing that Eleanor had finally sent the family heirloom. She'd probably already planned where to display it, had maybe even researched insurance policies for valuable antiques. The anticipation would be building to a fever pitch. Eleanor sent Michael a simple text: "Happy birthday to Jessica. I hope she truly loves her gift and everything it represents." His response never came, but Eleanor didn't expect one. Michael had made his loyalties clear. Soon, though, he'd understand exactly what he'd thrown away, and what kind of woman he'd chosen over his own mother. Jessica had planned her birthday celebration for weeks, inviting her entire social circle. 12 women who'd heard her complain about her impossible mother-in-law for years. These were the friends who'd supported her decision to exclude Eleanor from Christmas, who'd nodded sympathetically when Jessica painted herself as the victim of an overbearing older woman who just couldn't accept boundaries. The expensive gift sat prominently on the gift table in the dining room, clearly the most impressive package there. The professional wrapping and luxury presentation made everything else look cheap by comparison. Jessica had strategically positioned it where everyone could see it, probably hoping someone would ask about it, so she could casually mention her family heirloom. "Oh my God! You guys," Jessica announced during the appetizer course, gesturing toward the elegant package with barely contained excitement. "I think Michael's mom finally came to her senses and sent me the antique jewelry box she's been hoarding for years. This thing has to be worth a legitimate fortune. It's been in their family for like a century." Her friends gathered around with their phones ready, eager to photograph the unveiling of Jessica's long-awaited inheritance. Social media was about to get very interesting. Jessica carefully untied the silk ribbons with the reverence of someone opening a sacred artifact, savoring every moment of attention from her captivated audience. Her friends oohed and awed at the elegant presentation, taking photos of each layer being unwrapped. "This packaging alone probably cost more than my mortgage payment," someone joked, while another friend live-streamed the unwrapping on Instagram. "I've been waiting for this for literally 5 years," Jessica breathed, her voice filled with anticipation and greed. "Eleanor always said it would come to me someday. But I think she was just being possessive. This box has been appraised at nearly $20,000. She lifted the lid with ceremonial flourish, expecting to see sparkling gems nestled in velvet compartments. Instead, she found herself staring at a stack of papers tied with what looked suspiciously like a child's shoelace, the kind of makeshift ribbon a 7-year-old might use for a homemade gift. The room fell silent so completely that the grandfather clock in the hallway sounded like thunder. Someone cleared their throat nervously. Jessica's face went from flushed excitement to confused bewilderment in the span of a heartbeat. "Is that homework?" someone whispered, and several phones that had been recording suddenly stopped. The top item was a construction paper card decorated with glitter and star stickers. "Happy Mother's Day to the best mom ever," signed in Michael's unmistakable 7-year-old scrawl. Underneath lay a crayon drawing of their family. 3 stick figures holding hands in front of a house, with "Mommy is my favorite person in the whole world," written in orange crayon across the bottom. Jessica's friends exchanged increasingly uncomfortable glances as she rifled through love note after love note from young Michael. Mother's Day cards made from toilet paper rolls and painted pasta. Birthday cards with handprints and the words, "I love you this much," with arms stretched wide. A Father's Day card addressed to "Mom because you're my dad too now," with a drawing of Eleanor wearing a superhero cape. Each item was more damning than the last, painting a picture of a little boy who absolutely worshipped his mother. School essays about heroes that began, "My mom is the strongest person I know." Art projects that spelled out "Best MOM" in macaroni letters. Valentine's cards that said, "You're prettier than all the other moms." "This is really sweet," someone said carefully, trying to break the tension. Another friend was quietly filming Jessica's increasingly mortified expression. "Why would she send you childhood letters?" a third friend asked awkwardly. Jessica's hands were visibly shaking as she reached for the envelope at the bottom of the pile. Michael's 8-year-old letter was written in his careful, best handwriting, the kind reserved for important school assignments. "Dear Mommy, Tommy's mom and dad got divorced last week, and now his dad doesn't call him anymore or come to his games. That made me really scared, so I want you to know that I'll never leave you like that. When I'm a grown-up, I'll always take care of you and never let anyone hurt you because you're the most important person in my whole life. I promise I'll protect you forever and ever. Love forever and always, your son Michael." The silence in the room was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. Someone nervously sipped their wine. Another friend pretended to check her phone. Jessica's face had gone from red to white to an alarming shade of green. "Well," one friend said carefully, clearly desperate to fill the silence, "that's incredibly sweet. He must have really loved his mom." The past tense hung in the air like an accusation. Everyone in the room knew Jessica's stories about the overbearing mother-in-law, but this letter painted a completely different picture. One of a little boy making solemn promises to protect the woman who'd raised him alone. "I should probably head out," someone muttered, gathering her purse with sudden urgency. More items tumbled out of the box like accusations. Father's Day cards addressed to Mom, who's also my dad, with stick figure drawings of Eleanor wearing a tie and a superhero cape. School essays titled My Hero, that began My mother is the strongest person in the world because she works 2 jobs and still comes to every game. Mother's Day poems that rhymed caring with always sharing and love with gift from above. One drawing showed stick figures labeled Me and Mom Forever, with a big heart drawn around them both. Another card read, Thank you for never missing my baseball games even when you had the flu and looked green. A handmade coupon book offered services like 1 free hug when you're sad and I'll do dishes without complaining. The evidence was overwhelming and damning. Every single item screamed of a child who didn't just love his mother. He adored her, revered her, saw her as his entire world. The friends who remained were now openly uncomfortable, several of them remembering their own children's innocent declarations of love. Jessica's carefully constructed narrative was crumbling in real time. How do you explain away 20 years of a child's pure, unconditional love? How do you justify cutting out someone who was clearly the center of her son's universe? I really do need to get going, another friend announced, practically fleeing toward the door. At the very bottom of the box lay Michael's high school graduation speech draft. Never delivered, but preserved in Eleanor's careful hands like a sacred document. The typed pages were stapled together with a handwritten note. Final version for graduation speech. Never used because I was too embarrassed to be so emotional. Love you, Mom. Michael, age 18. Jessica read aloud with a voice that grew weaker with each word. Everything I am, I owe to my mother. She taught me that family means showing up, no matter what. She showed me that love isn't just words. It's actions, day after day, year after year, sacrifice after sacrifice. When other kids had 2 parents, I had 1 parent who loved me enough for 20. She worked double shifts so I could play baseball. She learned algebra to help with my homework. She never missed a game, a recital, or a moment that mattered to me. I hope someday I can be half the parent she's been to me. The remaining friends sat in stunned silence. One was openly crying. Another kept shaking her head in disbelief. The contrast between Jessica's stories about an overbearing mother-in-law and this evidence of pure, selfless love was staggering. Jessica? Someone whispered. Did you know about all this? Jessica stared at the speech, realizing that everyone now knew exactly what kind of son she'd turned against his mother, and exactly what kind of woman she really was. This is absolutely sick, Jessica finally exploded to the 3 friends who remained, her voice shrill with panic and embarrassment. What kind of twisted person sends childhood letters as a birthday gift? This is pure emotional manipulation. She's trying to make me look like some kind of monster when all I did was set healthy boundaries. But her words sounded hollow and desperate in the face of such innocent, pure love. The evidence was overwhelming. 20 years of a little boy's devotion to the woman who'd raised him alone. One friend, Sarah, finally spoke up with obvious discomfort. Jess, these letters are really, really sweet. Your mother-in-law must have treasured every single one. She saved them for decades. She's not my mother-in-law anymore, Jessica snapped, her composure completely shattered. And this is exactly why we don't want her around our family. She's manipulative and controlling, and she refuses to accept that Michael has moved on with his life. The remaining friends exchanged looks that said everything Jessica didn't want to hear. They'd seen the evidence with their own eyes. A mother who'd been adored, not overbearing. A woman who'd kept every scrap of love her son had ever given her. I think I should go, Sarah said quietly, standing up. Happy birthday, Jess. One by one, they left, taking their judgment with them but leaving the truth behind. When Michael came home to find Jessica's birthday party ended early and his childhood letters scattered across the table, his face went white. He picked up his 8-year-old promise to protect his mother, reading it with adult eyes. Where did these come from? He asked quietly. Your psychotic mother sent them as my birthday gift, Jessica snarled. Instead of the jewelry box she owes me. Michael continued reading. his jaw tightening with each innocent declaration of love. She kept all of these? Michael, you need to call her right now and tell her this harassment has to stop. Instead of calling to confront Eleanor, Michael sat in his car outside her house for 2 hours in the dark, holding the letter where he'd promised to always protect her. The words hit him like physical blows. I'll never let anyone hurt you. You're the most important person in my whole life. I'll always take care of you. When had he become the person hurting her? When had he decided that keeping Jessica happy was more important than honoring the woman who'd given him everything? He remembered Eleanor at every baseball game, cheering louder than any other parent, even when she was exhausted from working double shifts. He remembered her learning algebra at age 45 just to help him with homework. He remembered her sleeping on the hospital floor when he had his appendix out at age 12, refusing to leave his side. He remembered the way her face lit up every Christmas morning, not from receiving gifts but from watching everyone else open theirs. He remembered how she'd taught him to tie his shoes, to ride a bike, to treat women with respect. She'd been his whole world once. When had he decided Jessica's comfort mattered more than his mother's heart? When had he become someone who would abandon the person who'd never abandoned him? Not once, not even when it would have been easier. The man staring back at him in the rearview mirror was someone his 8-year-old self would be ashamed to meet. Michael called Eleanor at midnight, his voice breaking before he even said hello. Mom, I saw the letters. I read every single one. Eleanor's voice was calm, almost eerily controlled, but he could hear decades of hurt underneath the composed surface. Did you remember writing them, Michael? I remembered meaning them, he whispered, tears streaming down his face in the darkness of his car. Every single word. Mom, I'm so incredibly sorry. I don't know how I became this person. I don't know how I let this happen to us. I don't know how I forgot who raised me. You didn't forget, Michael. You made a choice. You chose to believe I was the problem instead of looking at what was really happening in your marriage. You chose to sacrifice your mother to keep your wife happy. I want to fix this. I want to come home. I want to be the son you raised again. There was a long pause before Eleanor spoke, her voice steady but infinitely sad. Your home is with your wife now, Michael. You made that very clear on Christmas. You told me it was easier without me. Mom, please. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Yes, you were. But some things, once broken, can't be put back together the same way. You'll have to earn your way back, son. And it starts with deciding what kind of man you want to be. Word of Jessica's birthday gift spread through her social circle like wildfire through dry grass. Sarah had discreetly photographed some of the more touching letters and shared them in their group chat, calling them, honestly, the sweetest thing I've ever seen, and proof that some mothers-in-law actually deserve respect. Other friends began quietly questioning Jessica's stories about her impossible mother-in-law. Had Eleanor really been the problem, or had they been hearing only one carefully curated side of a much more complex story? The evidence they'd witnessed painted a completely different picture, one of a devoted mother who'd been systematically erased from her son's life. When Jessica tried to control the narrative by complaining about Eleanor's manipulation, her friends responded with uncomfortable silence. How do you call childhood love letters manipulative? How do you argue with 20 years of documented devotion? Maybe she just misses her son, one friend suggested carefully during their next coffee meetup. Those letters show how close they used to be. Jessica found herself defending her position to increasingly skeptical friends who'd seen proof of Eleanor's love with their own eyes. The social support system she'd counted on was crumbling, leaving her isolated with the truth she'd tried so hard to bury. Her own mother called after hearing the story. Jessica, honey, maybe you should reconsider. Family is everything. 8-year-old Emma found the letters when Jessica carelessly left them scattered on the kitchen counter, too emotionally drained to clean up the evidence of her humiliation. Emma's reading had improved dramatically this year, and she could make out most of the words in her father's childhood handwriting. Daddy, she said quietly when Michael came down for breakfast, did you really write that you'd never leave Grandma Ellie? It says here you promised to always protect her. Michael knelt beside his daughter, shame washing over him like a physical weight as he looked into her innocent eyes. Yes, sweetheart. I did write that, and I meant every word. Then why don't we see her anymore? Mommy said she was too busy to come to Christmas. But these letters say she loves you very much. Did something happen to her? 10-year-old Jake appeared in the doorway, having obviously been listening. I miss Grandma's Christmas cookies. The way she let us help stir the dough and lick the spoons. Mommy's store-bought cookies aren't the same, and she gets mad when we ask for the recipe. I miss her bedtime stories, Emma added wistfully. She always did different voices for all the characters. Michael realized his children were mourning the grandmother Jessica had stolen from them, and they didn't even understand why she was gone. Michael came home the next day with a decision that would change everything. His childhood letters folded carefully in his jacket pocket like a talisman of the man he used to be. Jessica, we're having Easter dinner at Mom's house. The kids miss her. I miss her. And this madness ends now. Absolutely not, Jessica replied, her voice rising to a pitch that made the children look up from their homework. I will not be humiliated again by that manipulative woman. After what she did to me at my own birthday party. Never. Then you don't have to come, Michael said quietly, but with a steel in his voice that Jessica had never heard before. But my children are going to know their grandmother, and I'm going to start being the son I promised to be when I was 8 years old. Jessica stared at him in shock, realizing that the letters had fundamentally changed something in her husband. You're choosing her over me? After everything I've done for this family. I'm choosing to stop making my children choose at all. I'm choosing to stop abandoning the woman who never abandoned me. I'm choosing to be the man my mother raised instead of the man you tried to turn me into. If you take those kids to see her, don't bother coming back. Michael looked at his wife, really looked at her, and saw clearly for the first time in years. Then I guess we'll be staying with Grandma for a while. On Easter Sunday, Eleanor answered her door to find Michael and both children standing on her porch, suitcases at their feet and hope in their eyes. Hi, Mom, Michael said simply, his voice thick with emotion. We're sorry we're early, but we were hoping we could help with dinner. Like we used to. Like we should have been doing all along. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears as Emma hugged her legs and Jake asked if she still had the recipe for her famous dinner rolls and whether she remembered how he liked his eggs. The children chattered excitedly about everything they'd missed, all the stories they wanted to tell her, all the hugs they'd been saving up. As they cooked together, Eleanor teaching Emma how to fold napkins while Jake helped Michael set the table with the good china. Michael whispered, I kept the letters, Mom. I'm going to frame them and put them in my room, so I never forget again who I promised to be. Eleanor smiled, watching her grandchildren argue over who got to light the candles, their laughter filling the house that had been too quiet for too long. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply being loved unconditionally by people who know your worth. The antique jewelry box remained safely in Eleanor's room, where it had always belonged. Jessica could keep her perfect, drama-free holidays. Eleanor had something far more valuable. A son who'd remembered his promises and grandchildren who knew where they truly belonged. The gift that kept on giving wasn't what was in the box. It was what the box revealed about love, loyalty, and the courage to come home.